All right, welcome everybody to the comic panel. I'm Cody.
I'm Taylon.
I'm Jacob.
And I'm Shawenta.
And today we are discussing It Was the War of the Trenches, written and illustrated by Tardi, the French cartoonist. So getting into it, this book is it has multiple vignette stories, I guess you could call them, of different French soldier experiences from World War One. Yeah, and it's, like I said, the cartoonist for it is Tardi. He is a prolific graphic novelist, cartoonist, whatever word you want to use for him. And yeah, has won many awards and has been working since 1969 and into the present.
That's
Oh, is he still making stuff?
Yeah, he is.
That's like...
Is it still all about World War One?
No, he always focuses on historical stuff, it seems. He's even done like a Roman something fictional story. I mean, they're all fictional, but he tries to do, history and then go from there with fictionalizing the story.
Huh.
So he's done like 1812 to, World War II, I think. So he's done a lot in that range.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I ask is because, like, during a part of this book where I thought it was... I didn't know what this book was, but there was, like, what felt like a foreword in, like, the middle of a book. It talked about, like, hey, yeah, it seems like I just make World War One stuff. It's kind of weird.
Well, if you read about the little biography about him, he says he was very influenced by his grandfather's stories of World War One.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if that's why he's fixated on it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like, it makes sense, but I wouldn't have thought about it unless I read it after he put it in the book,
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I will
Okay, so he's done a faux Roman post-apocalyptic future.
He
that's
writes about
the one I was thinking of.
Yeah. Apparently, there's also a detective, a Paris-based private eye, and there's also like a unsmiling heroine, Le Labyrinth Infernal, that's supposed to be Indiana Jones meets Amelie, like as in like to give people a concept of what the character is like. I don't know who Amelie is though, but
it's the famous French movie with the like whimsical / delusional woman, in my opinion.
Nope.
Yeah.
Okay. She's got like the short bob cut. It's such a famous image now.
Interesting.
It's gonna bother me.
Yeah.
That we don't know it, or...
Yeah. Okay, whatever.
I see it. I looked it up.
Yeah, I don't like it.
I am...
That haircut is so not in.
And that's her fault.
It was a choice, I
Alright,
assume.
yeah, so he's done a range of subjects,
Mm-hmm.
but he does seem fixated on World War One.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and
So this is kind of like his magnum opus. Like, when you talk about Tardi, this is like the book that comes up first, usually.
Okay. Yeah. That's kind of what I got. Like, I mean, he did the other World War One thing that he did, or more recently, at least it says, is Putain de Guerre, which I saw somewhere what that translates to. I might, but it's like, I think it's something like "Damn this war" or something like that.
I see.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's consulted a lot of books historical books and a lot of films for this.
Oh wow.
So he starts out with like something historical, and kind of, like I said already, fictionalizes it from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has is it the foreword or special things where he's like, I talked with this person for like hours in the making of this. Jean-Pierre Verny. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, very.
I need a person who knows everything that I can just ask.
Right. Yeah. Just on call expert. Yeah. But yeah, and also this is not I would say it's not sensationalist or patriotic or anything like that. This is very much an anti-war book.
There's that one line in the foreword. It's, there are no heroes, there is no protagonist in this awful collective adventure that is war. Nothing but a gigantic anonymous scream of agony. I was like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Man, so nihilistic.
Mm-hmm. That's, I think nihilism was born out of World War I.
It's hard to go through every single story.
Yeah, I don't think that this...
What do you mean? You just say there's a guy, then there was a guy, then there was a guy, then there was a guy, and they were all soldiers, and they all were in World War I. Boom, bada bing.
They all meet guys, and I think all but one of them die?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Passing the vegetable test. Sorry. But yeah, like the first one, Benet...
Mm-hmm.
What is it? He watches some other guy crawl out to no man's land towards the middle, right?
And is it?
Yeah, because there's like the outpost where either it is like a forward observation where you're watching the front, or it's where people go to meet to like exchange goods from the other side to each other.
Some mythical land. Yeah, nobody really knows what's going on out there.
Yeah.
But the guy doesn't come back.
Oh yeah, that was.
And Benet is just like, he hates everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's either the kiss-ups, or the quiet people, or the drill sergeants who think they know everything.
Yeah.
It's like they all suck.
He's like, man, I think I would have liked the quiet people, except they even get insufferable.
Yeah.
Like, jeez, dude.
And he also hates everybody that he lives with at home too. In his building.
In his building, yeah. It's like, isn't there anybody? Just a little bit of...
Yeah.
Don't you know, if you don't have anything nice to say, you know?
Yeah,
but in the end,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, in the end, even though he didn't really care about the dude who crawled out and never came back, he claims, he's obsessed with what might be out there. What actually happened? Did the guy die? Is there some secret, like, peaceful area right in the middle there?
Yeah.
And so he can't help but run out there and also die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's also, like, multiple, like, I feel like this is actually an overarching theme throughout the book of, like, instances where people see essentially innocent people killed by, their own clan there.
Yeah, by firing squad.
Yeah. I mean...
Oh, yeah.
The Croatian, but even before that, the older man who did not stand and sing the national anthem
they have so many times they show, like, I think it's the tribunal come together, decide the fate of a soldier or whatever. And what is it? The first case we see, the soldier is considered disobeying orders. The problem is he can't understand French. So he couldn't understand what he was told. He can't understand what he's being sentenced to. And then he just ends up getting executed. And they always mention the fact that they use fresh soldiers who have never been to war before to do the execution.
Can you imagine the, like, how do you like the trauma like that you go through. It's just like, this is your you just got here and this is your first duty.
Elon, I think that's the point of the book, and you got it.
Yeah.
You got it.
Hey, I am not going to say this book wasn't effective.
I think that's also the point of doing that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I was going to say, the point of doing it is to prep them.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, you're going to have to do this.
Yeah,
Follow
part
orders.
of it's prep. Part of it is they're probably not confident enough in themselves to not obey an order that they're given.
But can you really do that?
Well, what do you mean?
Disobey a direct order? Like,
Yeah,
That is also, it is honing in the point of when you disobey a direct order.
you also face a firing squad, so...
Well, okay, technically yes, but if you are morally obliged to not follow any unlawful order in modern military. But
gotcha.
if you're it's hard to decide in the moment if it is a unlawful order or not.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
When the person in front of you has more authority than you, who do you turn to? They're the one telling you to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, then there's a lot of also, I noticed, people being wounded and nobody going out to help them necessarily. In some ways, it's just the constant feeling of abandonment, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. In some cases, even like, again, combining the two things that we're talking about, sometimes even shooting at your own person because they're wounded on the field and it's too much trouble to go and get them.
Mm-hmm.
But also knowing that the enemy's not finishing them off because it lowers your morale to hear somebody out there screaming.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're trying to bait you to get somebody to go out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not good. The Greatest Generation were not great people.
Slightly off, actually.
Oh,
this is
am I
not
off?
technically the Greatest Generation.
Oh, really?
Greatest Generation is World War II.
Dang, okay. That's right. Captain America is the Greatest Generation.
Oh, okay.
That's
I guess
If that's how you have to remember it,
Yes.
that's fine.
Huh. Okay, I guess that makes sense. For some reason, I thought that, World War One. I guess it's the children of World War One, essentially. Then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, at least that's how it's generally defined.
Okay. Yeah. I guess
There's
I thought
the
of
one.
what's his name, Tolkien and stuff like that, but.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay, there's the one story with the guy who catches rats.
Yeah.
I did not understand that one.
What do you mean?
So I don't understand how he died necessarily. Like, they said he would always go, they think he was going around to pillage corpses,
Mm-hmm.
and then he just ended up dying.
Yeah, he got caught in a bear trap.
Oh.
Okay,
Which I guess was just there?
Yeah.
it's so hard to see the bear trap in the previous panel.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I was like, where did it come from?
Yeah.
What page is that?
Unsure.
32 or something in the actual book.
Oh, okay, so 38 or something.
Yeah, thereabouts.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So the point, people, what is it, everybody else and the groups around him hated him at that point. They're like, he smelled of rats. All he does is ever try to make a quick buck.
Yeah.
They're like, we're happy he's dead.
Dude, that's messed up.
I mean, he did seem like kind of a scumbag.
Yeah. I wasn't disagreeing with them.
Yeah.
And it does kind of bury the lead where at the very beginning of the story, there's that guy as the body's getting stretchered away. It's like, well, I'm not happy to see anybody go, but it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
Oh yeah,
that's pretty much.
The always cheery guy.
Mm.
Yeah.
Was it Mazur?
I don't know. They're all a bunch of French names. I wouldn't be able to. Okay, this is a problem I have with the book. I get they all kind of look the same because they're all a part of the same army and they're all French people and they're all fighting in the same war, but they all look the same.
We will get to the things I had trouble with.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have the part where the Germans use the townspeople as human shields.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of haunts that one dude as he's 2 years later having like I don't remember what fever he has, trench fever or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, French fever. And he can't help but think, did I shoot that woman and that 2 children? Some days he thinks he did, some days he thinks he did.
Yeah.
Which I feel like if you have to ask the question, it means you probably did.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't want to stay right there and accept it.
I mean, no one wants to think of themselves as doing something like morally wrong like that. And honestly, like in that position, that is a hard decision to make. So like I get it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be in that position.
They have that one dude who claimed that the police officers would shoot soldiers who weren't running fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
So what?
And so because of that, he became like a serial killer of coppers.
So that wasn't an actual thing? That was just a claim that somebody made?
Well, it's what he said. You never see it.
Oh, I missed that.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
I mean, if you're asking, like, historically, did that happen? Maybe?
I'm pretty sure.
Dang.
Yeah.
The police are like, soldiers, what are you doing back here? Get out in the front.
Yeah. I mean, there's...
Well, they always talk about, like, the policemen are, busy policing the soldiers and kind of treat them badly. Despite the fact that, we're the ones on the front lines, they get to stay back here. Why are they bothering us so much?
So is this, like, military police?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I just assumed civilian police.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's true. I assumed that, too.
Yeah, they don't make it
sense.
clear until later, and it's still a little bit like foggy, but yeah, it's they're meant to be military police.
That makes a little bit more sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like,
and then that serial killer guy ends up getting blown up, sorta.
Boom. Probably.
Yeah.
I don't remember every beat of the story.
Yeah,
because
it explodes, it like breaks his leg, and then he's talking to the guy, or it's like, "Oh, you killed those police officers." He's like, "Yeah, so what if I did?"
I'd do it again, and I've done it several times.
We're supposed to be on the same team.
There's the one story of the artist guy. Well, he makes little knickknacks out of the metal.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do they call him? The bullet silversmith or something like that?
Yeah. Or
and they end up, he's always doing it for money. He's always doing it, 5 pence here or something.
Yeah. But he's a very cheerful guy.
Super cheerful, always willing to do something for a buck.
Yeah.
And so they're like, okay, well, you take that guy's shift, and you'll get a little extra. And he ends up doing it and immediately getting shot on the barbed wire.
Mm-hmm. I was surprised that the other, his other, I don't know what to call it, teammates, I guess,
sure.
weren't like, no, we can't have you go out there.
Well, yeah, okay, but it's a situation where, you really like that guy.
Yeah.
But like, if I go out there, I might get shot. I don't want to get shot.
Yeah. You gonna go? Love you, dude, but you agreed to it already.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he wanted, he was willing to do it for a little extra money.
Although I didn't think about it, but I like that reflection as like the guy we were just talking about who died in that bear trap.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're both described as people who will do anything for money.
Yeah.
But one is good guy and the other is scumbag.
Mm-hmm.
He's not pillaging corpses, to be fair. He's not smelling like dead rats constantly.
It's portrayed a little differently because while the rat guy was like willing to do anything for money, like the guy who's always cheery is like more like he's got a side hustle, right? Like, oh no, I make things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and it does seem like, I don't think that his main motivation is really like more money necessarily. It's like,
he has like, he's poor, right?
Yeah.
And like back home. And so it's like, I want to make some money.
Right. Yeah, it's not. It's yeah. They definitely do a lot to set up, like, greed versus need, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it has throughout the sequence of him sort of dying or dead already, it has his fiance back home.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. That's about about the part where I stopped reading.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure.
Right.
So something about jewelry? Is that right?
Yeah, he's like constantly saying like, I'll send you money so you can buy that little thing that you wanted in the jewelry shop.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, there's a lot better things the money could be used for. Like, you're worrying about what jewelry I can buy. Like, you should think of yourself. She's worried about him. She's sad for him that he's doing so much of this stuff for what's kind of silly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then there's
the ending is really interesting to me in the, like, it's a very long sort of monologue. It feels like a montage at the end of a movie kind of thing, where it shows all the different people involved, all the different sides.
Yeah, pretty much they had all the different countries and their people, all of the different, and then, like, very much the numbers of it all, how many dead, wounded, maimed, just getting into like a lot of statistics, kind of.
10 million dead. How many years of hope buried forevermore in the mud? How many orphaned, maimed, widowed? In France alone, 2,300 acres of military cemeteries. Fine soil for growing beets, but crosses are the only thing that grow there. Yeah.
Dang. What?
And
Wait.
like talking about the prisoner of war, where it's like, I'm so happy I was captured. Cramped and undernourished, yes, but here the sky, though heavy with rain, is at least not heavy with deadly metal. So life is good. You get treated decently because there are Frenchmen on the other side in the same situation. It's in between that is hell. So you're either stuck on this side or that side, but when you're stuck in the middle is the worst.
Yeah, that was a story that I really liked that we kind of skipped over, was the two soldiers that got lost.
I was going to go around back to that.
Okay, yeah.
Really interesting one.
Yeah.
Was it the French and the German?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
In the basement, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they both got lost and basically decided that whichever country's army, gained the ground that they were in, one would be the prisoner of the other.
Yeah.
And then
that was a sad story.
Yeah.
I mean, just like all the
others.
Isn't
it in the end the French?
Huh?
In the end, it's the French that come in, they shoot the German, and they go, oh, you've been fraternizing with the enemy this entire time. Mm-hmm. You're a traitor. You're also going to get executed.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Oh, man, that made me think of the other one where it was, I think the group is forced to charge the front line. They end up retreating, and they end up getting shelled by their own side because they retreated. And then,
you're talking.
And then finally they call it off because they're like, okay, don't kill them all. But if we have to kill somebody to make a statement, let's choose 3 random ones. And it's like the one dude who's survived like since the inception of this group.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, this guy started off, or at least introduced to us, and he was like, yeah, I mean, I've been lucky so far, but I feel like today I'm going to die. Mm-hmm. And he didn't die. And you're like rooting for him. You're like, yes. And then he is killed to make an example.
Mm-hmm.
Chosen randomly.
Oh,
sort of.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah.
But yeah, I feel like that's probably most of the stories in this book. I mean, we'll probably...
It's a good summary.
Yeah, a good summary.
Read the book if you want the full details.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, getting into some more of like what we thought about it. I feel like it so for me, the progression, like it took about halfway in before it really started to like be, I don't know, effective, I guess, because it's not enjoyable.
Yeah.
But to have its aim be realized, because in the beginning I was just like kind of really not interested. But yeah, kind of overall.
Yeah, they really throw you right into the trenches.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the part where the one character, he talks about how he even got there with, witnessing the beginning of the war and how people who hate each other in the streets were coming together because they wanted to wage war. They're like, finally, we're gonna beat them, get back at them. This is great, like the fever of it, and to the point where they kill that old man for not standing for the anthem. Or like, getting up and singing the national anthem with them all.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, obviously, since you didn't get up and do it, you're a traitor. And as he says, it's the first casualty of war.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
That one, was really like a part that I was just like, I don't know, it's like, it's so like real, but at the same time it's hard to imagine being real because of like, just, I don't know, like the United States and like the history that we've had now of like, like Vietnam War protest and stuff like that. You're allowed to burn a flag and be as unpatriotic as you want to be, and so
that's lawfully, right?
Right.
I don't think lawfully they were allowed to kill that old man.
Right, yeah.
It's just the fever of being in that moment and being there, and the fact that, honestly, you could probably whip any group up to doing that if you did it right.
Yeah. I agree that this comic was very effective in communicating the kind of atmosphere that was there in that environment, and it was really affected me, I guess.
Yeah, when I picked it, I was like, I've been meaning to pick this one, but I was like, man, I know it's going to be depressing. I haven't read it, but I just know.
Yeah.
And when I picked it, I started reading a little bit of it. I think I got to page 40, and I was like, I can't do this. And so I stopped. And then I restarted it later, and I was like, man, this is still a little hard.
Yeah.
And the first story is kind of difficult, because like I said, you're really thrown into the trenches. It's a little hard to feel where they are. It's so suffocating. But I think once you get a contrast of like where they get to relax sometimes, or like where they came from, things outside of the trenches, and then you get to see the trenches in comparison, I think that was pretty effective in making me understand, like, they are really just slogging through mud. It's just where you sleep.
Yeah. One thing,
like all the people you have to deal with constantly.
Yeah. One thing that I was gonna say kind of made it difficult for me, I think, was that I didn't feel like this had a strong sense of like action, which I mean is like, I can see it being purposeful, but like when action is happening, it's just kind of like it felt very still and photographic,
So you mean visually?
Yeah, visually.
I see.
Okay, yeah, I can agree with that. This kind of goes along with what Jake was talking about, where it's hard to tell who is the main character of that section sometimes, like who we're supposed to be following, who's monologuing or being talked about. I could easily lose them in a group a lot of times.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and also not occasionally, there isn't like, any use of like sound effects generally. So like, that also kind of leads to kind of a loss of action, where like, the simplest one would be machine gun fire, just like a, rat, 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 something like that. But
Yeah, the effects that they do, the little drawn effects, are cool for those things. But yeah, there's kind of, you lose that extra sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, are you saying that there are effects in this? Because if there are, I didn't notice them.
Like drawn visually, like there's the explosion effects.
Oh, okay, yeah, I gotcha. Yeah.
There's not the actual sound effects.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's what I felt like was kind of missing for me.
There is some sound effects, at least.
Yeah, actually, I did just see one page worth of machine gun fire, which I was just saying wasn't there, but
missing at certain points, though. I definitely remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Is it too gaudy to be like boom over like a clear explosion?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it helps to, because it's like, so this is like in comics in general. I don't always read sound effects, but I think the visual identification of them being in there does help me.
A big noise.
Yeah.
There's big words here, and there's probably a big noise.
Yeah.
And it's scary and bigger than the characters.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you don't notice it when it's there, but when it's not there, you notice.
Yeah.
You're not even reading it sometimes, like you were saying, Cody.
Mm-hmm.
Just the visualization of a sound is here.
Yeah.
Funny to think about.
It's an identification to, like, that helps bring you into the story a little bit more.
Interesting. I guess I didn't notice. I guess it just kind of like auto-filled, like, when I saw an explosion. The explosion noise went off in my head.
It didn't bother me, but I definitely can see how it would help, I think, at certain points.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think... So this was released in sections, in, like, publications. And then there's, like, he took a big hiatus on it before he finished the series off. But I can definitely see how reading it back to back is a little hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this would...
Going back to that thing of, like, the main character, like, moving throughout the panel, and I'm like, which one is he?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember his name. And then also, I think some of the translations, I have trouble with, Benoit told so-and-so, Benoit's captain told so-and-so to go out into the front lines. He stayed put. I was like, who? Like, the subjects of certain sentences I got confused by. I would have to read several times. So I wonder if that's just the translation.
Right, yeah.
It was originally French.
There was a couple of things, too, that were, like, not untranslated, but it was just, like, very specific things. So it was like, I don't know what that is, and I'm not gonna Google it right now.
Oh,
like what?
I did, actually.
Okay.
Wait, translation?
Or, yeah, I don't...
Like when they were speaking?
No, you're thinking of the Germans, right? Yeah, and they actually did translate that later.
I translated that all, and then I just flipped the page.
Yep, same.
Damn it.
Same. I and then I got mad at my computer because it wouldn't let me edit it on the computer. It was a whole thing. I wasted like 20 minutes trying to figure it out.
And Google Translate it.
Oh, man, yeah.
It's really interesting to think about the fact that this was in French, and then that was German. Because when they had the German, I was like, but then why aren't the French in French?
Yeah, see, when it went to the German, I was all like, well, this is obviously not meant to be understood. And so I just skipped, I didn't skip it. I looked at the pictures and then turned the page, and I was like, oh, that's what they're saying.
Which, actually, that's a really small part of the story that kind of was like only in that section, the little kid.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
The guy tells the little kid off, like, he's like, get out of here. You should be in the classroom. Like, that's much better for you anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then ends up the little kid, I guess, used a uniform and got killed on the front lines.
Yeah.
Playing war, in quotation marks.
And he had stolen the little notebook that had been given to him by the other guy.
The main guy had, like, abandoned it. He had gotten it from the missing in action dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
And was like, ugh, I don't need his book.
Okay, I didn't know that he willingly gave it, but yeah.
No, he just he threw it in the mud.
Okay.
And the little kid was there at the time, and I think he went back and picked it up later.
Gotcha.
It's such a little tiny visual thing. I mostly noticed because I was like, gosh, that's rude. There's just something so disrespectful about, like, tossing a dead person's belongings in the mud.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. I think that, that also, like, gives to the idea that, like, so many people are, like, dying, so, like, in these horrible ways that, like, and then they're not being, like, treated respectfully in any context. That's like, oh, well, between the person that, like, pillages the bodies and then just doing that, it's like, I've held on to this thing long enough and it doesn't have anything that's, like, of any value.
Keeps reminding me of that dude. I didn't like that dude.
Yeah.
It's literally like what he says.
Right.
Also, to go with that, like, a lot of times people in positions of authority, when they're telling other people, like, go bury that body, it's always followed up, or it's always precluded by, like, the body's bumming us out. Go get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, put yourself in danger because it's bumming us out, not because that person, like, mattered or anything. Because it don't.
Yeah.
In the story, they often refer to them as, like, cannon fodder, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think you were saying, Cody, that you liked the basement one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I liked that one that much, but I liked the message he had at one point in it, where he goes, when it's just two people, you can agree to not fight, and, like, you can get along. But the moment you start to include everybody else, then we have to fight.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, that's...
Yeah.
I don't know how to express it.
Yeah. No, it's exactly. And also just the, like, the whole, like, the idea that, like, nations are kind of dumb, that it doesn't really matter, where you're from, that, they get along because they're kind of just in the same position, And yeah, I just liked their, the relationship that kind of developed between them. And then...
However brief it was.
Yeah.
And I forgot about that part where he literally doesn't hear that he's sentenced to death, right? Because he's deafened by the noise of the other dude being shot, the German being shot in the basement.
And I wondered, I kind of felt like that was, like, purposefully ambiguous of, like, was he, like, just literally deafened by the rifle shot, which is, like, totally possible. You're inside a building, that's probably, like, concrete. Or is it, like, he can't believe that they just on site shot that guy, so I am, like, like, shell-shocked, kind of deafened, I'm not listening, I am checked out, I didn't
really take it to be anything other than literal, and I still really like it that way. The constant thing of, like, people are constantly unaware that they're about to die.
Yeah, that
in some ways, they're aware always that they're going to die soon, but never really. I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah, and not being, like, it is more tragic in that sense, But yeah.
It goes along with that other thing of the dude being like, I'm gonna die today. He doesn't, but he sort of does.
Yeah.
Gets sentenced anyway.
Yeah. It's just, all of this, like, the multiple references that they make to sheep being, like, put to the slaughter too. Same with, like, calling them cannon fodder also, just like nobody wants to be there, nobody wants to be doing what they're doing, but they can't do anything else.
They make a point of saying, there's less the people in, like, positions of authority, there's less of them than the people they're commanding to death.
Mm-hmm.
but there's no possibility of them uprising.
Right.
There's no concept of that. They're always just going to follow the orders. Not even, I don't even know. Sometimes they're called sheep, but it's not even in a disparaging way, just a sort of tragic way.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't say that's ever disparaging. Just
Yeah.
I really like the ending sequence.
Yeah, that was kind of neat.
Can't relate.
Oh, yeah.
Should have read it.
Should have been there.
What were you going to say, Jake?
It just, like, I like some of the connections they made where it's like talking about the people who are, like, often overlooked. Like, because we talk about, well, okay, the French were involved, the Germans were involved, the British and the Americans in 1917. We don't talk about, like, yeah, well, you know, we also brought people from all the colonies that those countries owned to fight in this war.
Yeah.
The Belgians.
They talk about the Vietnamese are always the grave diggers, always this, always that, you know, like really lower rung jobs.
Mm-hmm. They didn't mention the Australians. Or is that World War II?
No, it actually says right here, starting with the inhabitants of the United Kingdom, including the Canadians, Australians, New Zealanders, South Africans, and Indians, over 900,000 British subjects will die to protect the interests of the English crown, but not all of them fell with the frog eaters.
I don't know what the frog eaters.
I assume that's the Germans.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was the French.
Oh,
yeah, because they eat like frog legs.
That makes
literally
more
the
sense.
German guy calls him like, I'm with a frog eater now.
Oh, okay.
Froggy, yeah.
Oh, that makes more sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm with you guys now. But yeah.
Fair enough.
Even that last line again, where we paused briefly for the impromptu execution of a villager. He was a spy, or so we'd heard. It's that line again of like, he committed a wrong. That's what somebody said, so we gotta kill him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whether it's true or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the mention, it was nice, the last little mention. It was very interesting to mention also like the revolutions that happened, which I think in some ways it's saying because of World War I, too. You know, just part of the problem. Like being forced to take part in it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like the revolutions were in response to that or against that. Like, we don't want to be a part of this.
Yeah, it says here the Russians leave. They don't want to fight anymore. In La Courtine, in the middle of France, where we'd quarantined them, they put up a banner, "Down with war. The Tsar has just abdicated. That they want to go home because of the revolution."
Mm. Oh, the
Russian Revolution.
Yep, I'm trying to think of the term, but it's not coming to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a line Tardi has. Oh, the Great War, that gaping wound in Europe's history from which has sprung seemingly every horror that has inflicted us since. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's not necessarily by him, but it's about this book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's totally like, you don't think about that as an American, because we didn't have to go through that. We were
we fought very briefly at the very end, and it was far away from our shores.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not to minimize, I'm sure people were traumatized from it.
Right.
But, like, the American experience is a lot more pleasant than it was if you were French or British or German or Austro-Hungarian, considering Austro-Hungary doesn't exist anymore after this war.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
and also, as I was reading this, I couldn't help but think about the fact that directly World War II, World War I, that's how you get World War II.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. within
going along with that.
Within your lifetime,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't just see one World War. That's bad enough. Within your lifetime, you saw two.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, what, 25 years apart, roughly?
Yeah.
Yeah, 1918 to 1939 is usually when it's said to have started. And then also in the middle of that, Great Depression also happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and also I was gonna say too that the true final pages are it kind of, because it zooms way out like we were talking about, and then it kind of zooms back into a guy that is just talking about how he's suffering from lice right now and they're making him bleed, and then
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
yeah, and he talks about how he killed, a young enemy soldier, but he was so young, and he shouldn't have been there and stuff like that. And then, he just gets, or both of the men get artillery shelled basically and die. And that's like on it's at 1 or 10 a.m. Yeah, on November 11th, 1918. On the same day at 5 a.m., the armistice had been signed, due to take effect 6 hours later. So basically, in 1 hour, it would have been over.
Yeah.
I mean, you've heard about the real stories of that, right? It's like that happened to real people, where they like died immediately.
No,
I didn't know.
I'm pretty sure there's the one where the dude ran towards the enemy to get back his honor, and he was the last casualty of war.
Dang.
That sounds familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I can't remember what he did. Like, lost honor. I think he lost his rank because of something stupid.
Oh, okay.
I also, Cody, you were talking about how a lot of the pages feel, despite there's a lot of action, they feel very stiff in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think it is because he consulted so many photographs, probably.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too, was the case. Because
so those moments where they're like standing around are really poignant. I think the stillness is really creepy, but yeah, sometimes the action feels a little stilted because of that.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't help that most of the narrative is through the narrator.
Yeah, caption boxes.
Or people talking a lot.
There are a lot of words in this comic.
Yeah.
Maybe he should just write a book. I don't know.
Would you read that book?
No.
Or would you read the comic?
Hey, you did read the comic.
I wouldn't have read this comic by myself. Regardless.
Yeah.
Not sure history fan.
Yeah.
Fake history fan.
Yeah, how dare I?
Yeah.
I did a little bit as reading this go like, I want to read another history book. So perhaps.
Hey, well.
It's the gateway.
There you go.
Yeah.
We didn't say this before, but we are in a new theme of historical comics, I guess.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be more.
Yeah, there will be more.
It was either
Hopefully
this
not all
or
World War
Charlie's
I.
War.
I don't know what your guys' choices are, but isn't Charlie's War a movie also?
It's a series of books that were sort of like newspaper printed. And it's a lot more about single character going through, stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of books.
Yeah.
Interesting. Also, we kind of talked around it a little bit, but despite the kind of stiltedness, I felt sometimes, I did like the art. The illustrations are like, it's a very specific style, but it's, it is interesting to look at.
I was really drawn to it. Like that's how I found out about Tardi, of course, was the art.
Gotcha. I did think that there was something distinctly different between like the first like the story before that insert that he had, and then after that, the art was different.
Yeah,
and I liked it better.
Interesting.
I think I noticed differences from certain areas. Like certain parts, he would fill in the black, like the shadows, and just not fill in like the light parts. And then other parts, he would fill in everything and then like chip away using like a white pencil or something. I assume chip away the light areas.
Okay.
And I mean, of course, that's gorgeous because like the texturing is really cool.
Yeah. I specifically noticed like the texture of the background. It's like, wow. I said it more as like, there's a lot of detail here. There was something I wanted to point out too. Is like there were a couple moments where like they mentioned God, and it was like on page 39 and 77, or the two that I found. But there was one more, but it was like they were shooting at the cross, and using it as target practice.
Both sides doing that.
Yeah, and then 77 was a little bit different because that was the church where the German and the French they met, and like there's a peace there. And I was just like, it makes sense that would be in a church, but it just and then the third instance that I couldn't find the specific page on, but it was like somebody saying like if God existed, then this war wouldn't be happening, you know. And it was just like,
what's that? Yeah.
Do you remember what that was?
No, I just remember the line where he's like, where they worship that like nude fellow or something.
Oh yeah. What do you think of a religion that promotes itself on a naked man on a cross? That's what they were saying.
Yeah, like the weird way of describing something in the wrong way.
Yeah.
Sort of right, sort of wrong.
Yeah. I was just like, man, that's really tough, you know?
Yeah.
Because, like, to me, like, I understand what God isn't, you know, against war in the sense that, you know, he's not going to ordain it, right? But he certainly doesn't want it, you know?
Right.
He would rather all of us be in unity. But, like, how do you explain that to somebody going through that? Like, I really felt that, like, man, that's tough.
Right.
That's a really tough situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you were in that situation, it really goes to show anybody in that situation how, you know, sometimes some people really cling to religion and that, like, helps them get through it.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of people, like in this case, where it just feels like another simple excuse. You know, how many wars are waged based on religion.
Right. Yeah. And I think, you know, the point that, like, a lot of them felt like the pointlessness of it. And like, being in the trenches for so long and not seeing progress be done, knowing how many people you know have died, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of pointlessness to that. You know? But, yeah.
Certainly. Yeah. It's
sounds like people were certainly affected by this book.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's on the one hand, it's like, you know, things that, like, I guess I'd say that, like, you know, there's a mixture of things that, like, maybe I didn't necessarily know, and then things that, like, you know, through, like, history classes and stuff like that I did know, and then, but, like, you know, you aren't often reminded of it, you know, so.
I don't know. I don't think I was affected that much, but that might also just be, like, I consume a lot of different war content, so maybe I am... That's I don't know if we want to get more into stuff we didn't really like, but, like, this is, like, very basic anti-war messaging at its core. War is dehumanizing. It's bad. People die for no reason. Like, yeah, that happens in literally every war. All that happens.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, it's a very mainstream kind of book. I mean, it literally is mainstream. It got popular. It's an essential classic, they call it now.
Interesting.
So yeah, I would say it is very surface level at some parts.
Yeah.
So you don't get into the deeper part of it, but it is it's interesting that the characters are named, and yet a lot of times we talked about their problems seem very similar to each other, kind of repeating.
Mm-hmm.
Could be anybody.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you a little bit, Jake, but at the same time, it's like, does it really get any more complicated? Like, I mean, I guess it is like, maybe, I don't know, yeah, it's like, war is like, I mean, I don't think that this is saying that, there's like, there are good wars and World War One was bad. It's just like, I have this like kind of a little bit of fixation on World War One, but I am also saying that all wars are bad. And yeah, I don't know if there's, more to it though, as to, why or how it's bad.
I don't know, like I guess I kept waiting for something a little more like unique to this book, or like unique about World War One. Like, which I guess you could say comes from the author's personal connection to the book, but it's like it doesn't talk about how the French and Germans are killing each other because a Serb killed a Russian, or like I forget how the saying goes, but like it touches on it a little bit at the very beginning when it's talking about within a week all these different countries are going to war because of an assassination, but that. I don't think that goes far enough for me.
I mean, I thought kind of assumed that people would know coming into it.
No, well, I see. I think this is where you're coming from, Jake. That it wasn't actually specific enough of how, like, I don't know, but now the war was in that, it's like this kind of, like, I mean, it's not an assassination is like, important and bad, but it's like, and now we're going to throw all of these other bodies into it, But yeah, I think that it does enough to go through how pointless it is that I don't know, yeah. I'm not sure that I was looking for anything with more specificity, but I mean, if you were, that's valid too.
Hearing about it sounds... I would like to read something like that a little bit more, but I don't feel like it's required for this book. I still like the book as it is. I mean, I did say that I found some of the parts to be kind of repetitive because I couldn't remember who was who and all that. But I really do like probably the beginning, but mostly the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the ending's probably my favorite part. Just because, like, that...
You kind of get a feeling of the scope a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But I mean, like, I guess I didn't dislike any specific part more than others. If that makes sense. Although I did think it was kind of boring.
Yeah, and that's also, I would kind of agree with that. It's like, it's kind of tough to say for me, just in that, like, it's like, well, it was effective, I think, in what it was doing for me. It was, and these are, like, real, like, tragedies, where it's like, I can't, like, say too much bad about it, because it's like, even if this is, like, fictionalized, it's like, this stuff did happen. But yeah, there was kind of times where I was like, I don't really want to be reading this right now, and I think that also goes to what Shwenta was saying earlier of like, maybe it would have been a little bit more digestible reading it, not in a collected edition.
First story, it has, he just has contempt for everybody. We get to see him on the front lines. We get to see him not on the front lines a little bit, dealing with that kid, and then dying pointlessly, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing everybody he doesn't like from back home, but that is kind of his home, and they're all happy to see him, it says. Kind of haunting him before he dies. And then the little kid kind of dying, and I think that was kind of a perfect little section of what everything the book sort of wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of sort of went off in other tangents as it continued on.
Yeah.
Which were all interesting in some ways, but sometimes they were a little longer than I felt they needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that first story gets it for me.
Gotcha. Wonder if this would have... You could probably say that have the same message if it was like you're following one person throughout all these different things.
But then you can't have him die pointlessly.
Which I mean, like, I guess...
But you'd have people around him, though.
Every single time.
Yeah.
I guess maybe this is just the way I was thinking about it. These are stories that he had heard from his grandfather, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they did technically all happen to one person. Maybe with some embellishment.
Well, it's
or
like, I heard this
was
happened
a story
to so-and-so,
I heard
right?
from... Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, I guess it probably would be less effective if nobody died.
Yeah.
Or only at the very end of the book somebody died.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean,
but also it probably gets old after like the third or fourth time it happens, where it's like, and then they died. Nobody learned anything.
But maybe that's the point. They didn't learn.
Well, yeah, maybe. But even if
if
they learn a lesson, that doesn't solve the problem because it's still World War One.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you could make a book about that.
I want to say I can see where you could remix it and cut out certain parts and make it technically about one person kind of changing a little bit throughout the story and then possibly dying at the end. But man, that's a bummer.
Yeah. Oh no, make it about the guy who was like, I survived! And then he dies on a firing squad. That would be rough.
Oh, I feel like there's a short story like that, but now I'm blanking on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think it's necessary for me to have a continuous character. I don't think that would make it
I just
better.
think it's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
To, like, instead of being like, and here's a new person, and here's a new person, you got to get their whole deal, and then half the time they're just like, just some dude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, do you think you'd be interested in reading more of Tardi's books, even if they weren't about World War One?
That weird post-apocalyptic Roman one does sound pretty interesting.
Get rid of that history.
Other than that, probably
excited. I was excited. I thought he did a book on Romans, and I was like, yes, yes. But it's post-apocalyptic. Oh, dime a dozen in the comic shop. Any comic shop.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I would potentially, I liked the art style. I would at least check it out, just to get a wider sampling, of their work.
I don't think I want an anthology though, or like not anthology. I mean, in this case,
right?
A bunch of different little stories.
Right.
I do think I kind of want one where there's a main character, even if it's a shorter book. It ends up being just a short story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I want that.
Yeah, I think that'd be better for me too.
Yeah, I would need a compelling reason other than like I want to read this.
Yeah.
To read more.
Yeah.
Hate history.
Really?
History's in the past. I mean
get over it.
Why are we still talking about it?
Yeah. Oh,
I'm joking. For all intents and purposes, that was a joke.
It's a bit. All right, got it.
Yeah,
got
it.
It's always a bit,
yeah.
Thankfully.
Until
it isn't.
But I was serious about I would need a compelling reason.
Yeah. I will say...
No, sorry. Go ahead, Tardi.
Thank you. I will say that I don't think for me that this book is an essential classic. Like, this is not, like... Unless somebody's like, yeah, my thing is World War One.
I was going to say, like, do you know of a better World War One comic?
I mean, I guess not, but like that's not what makes something an essential classic. It's like it's just good on its own for what it is, you know.
Okay, yeah. I don't know. I do think it's kind of a classic. I don't know if you have to be like I don't know, this book like got collected in the 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's been 30 years, man.
93 actually, so it has been exactly 30 years.
It's older than us.
Yep.
Yeah, you know what? That's fair.
I wonder
Maybe
if
we're
the thing
judging it
again.
too much.
You tried your best, old comic book. I'm just saying, I think, for its time, it was extremely good. It's still pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say it holds up as far as, like, especially comparing it to other comics that came out in the 90s.
Fair.
That maybe aren't historic.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'll say, sometimes I really don't like when people do main character stories about historical events, but it's the fictional character story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're like, I took part in this thing that actually happened.
Yeah.
You're like, sure you did.
Well, I'm thinking of like an actual book, something Freeman. I can't remember. It was about a woman.
Okay.
But I don't think she was involved in like fictional characters, but in the historical setting.
Yeah.
Is that what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, what comes to my mind is the boy in the striped pajamas. Like that's like often like a.
Oh yeah, it's about real history, but none of it ever happened.
Yeah. That kind of
Is
thing.
that what you mean?
Sometimes that bothers me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have anything against that movie because I haven't watched it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
The movie you haven't seen. Book was not worth reading.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's our review on The Boy with Striped Pajamas. Haven't seen it.
Well, as someone who did watch it, I don't remember it. So.
All right.
What an essential classic as well.
Yeah. What I wanted to say though was that I think that's partially why I feel like Mouse probably has like, pervaded the public consciousness a little bit more in comparison to this. I mean, obviously there's a lot more general interest in World War II over World War I also. But I would like to think that there is an aspect of this is, Art Spiegelman directly interviewing his father about his experience.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Was his father a mouse?
No.
Okay.
But it was Jewish.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
We need to read the book, I guess.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think that wraps up our coverage of It Was the War of the Trenches by Tardi. This has been the Comic Panel. I'm Cody.
I'm Taylon.
I'm Jacob.
And I'm Shawenta.
And we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Music, Spotify, or Podbean. You can support this podcast by sharing it with anyone you know and by rating and reviewing our podcast. You can also reach out to us with any thoughts you have on the things we talk about on Twitter at TheComicPanel1 and on Instagram and Facebook at TheComicPanel. We appreciate your feedback and look forward to sharing many more comic thoughts with you. Have a blessed day. The music for today's outro is called Marche, Lorraine, performed by the Polydor Orchestra. Marche, Lorraine is a patriotic song composed by Louis Ganne in 1892 for the 28th Federal Celebration of Gymnastics in France. This song has since become a standard of the official French military repertoire.